On the next page, B, where bullying is prohibited. Third from the bottom line, it says bullying creates a hostile environment at school for the target. We inserted a comma there because, again, we're listing. On the third page, there was a typo, number 3, second to the last line. It's all caps, North Reading Public Schools. That was not the case previously. On the next, on next page, we inserted a space between the last 2 paragraphs on the page. And on the last page of the document, the cross-references, I went back into our policy manual and found some errors with the previous cross-references that have been listed. So you'll see in the new revised bullying policy, those cross-references are accurate, and they are included in our current policy manual.
Any questions or comments? I again want to thank the policy subcommittee, Mr. Bowers, Mr. Kushakji, Ms. Ericetti, who also provided guidance and direction on this, Ms. Willis. This is a great policy, and I think this policy, combined with the plan that we saw presented tonight, will put North Reading schools in good shape in terms of dealing with this issue and complying with the state requirements as of December 31st, 2010. So if there are no further questions, I'll entertain a motion to approve our new bullying policy, the second reading, policy GAAC.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Bowers. Michael, would you like to second that as
I'll
the?
second it.
Okay. Second by Mr. Kushakji. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous.
One abstention. You
Oh,
never had-
one abstention, sorry. 4-0, one abstention. I didn't hear you, that's right.
You didn't ask.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
New business. Presentation of the superintendent's goals. Now, before Kathleen gets these, they're probably not going to be as fun as when David used to present them, because Jerry and I used to harass the heck out of David, and you're new, so I'm going to be kind tonight. Jerry may harass you too, I don't know, but.
If I knew goals were next, I would have been 20 minutes later. No offense.
See, he's starting already.
No.
Thank
Kind,
you.
fellas, be kind.
Kathy?
You had indicated that I should keep it simple,
Yep.
and so I have.
Great.
And I took a look at the goals that the school committee set, and I mirrored my goals after those goals. I thought that was particularly important, being a superintendent new to North Reading, as I continue to learn about the community and identify where we want to go based on the entry plan, which leads me to Goal 1. The Goal 1 reads, the superintendent will work with the school committee and the North Reading Public Schools to establish an overall educational plan and provide a framework and environment which supports the success of this plan. I provided a rationale as to why I thought that goal was important, and it had a lot to do with this activity in which I'm engaged, and that is conducting the entry plan. And so a lot of the rationale talks about why I'm involved in the entry plan and how this information will lay the foundation for future strategic goals and planning for the future. I also indicated under the rationale that this community, prior to my coming to it, had already identified the need for a secondary school building project and is in the process of entering into that partnership with the MSBA. So I thought that was another very important piece to establishing an overall education plan, because a new facility helps us to accomplish that. So you can see under the action plan, I've identified very specific activities that I will engage in to accomplish or to reach that goal. And it's conducting the entry plan with a presentation to you, using the entry plan to identify strategic goals, working with the SSBC and the MSBA on the feasibility study, supporting the Administrative Council in all of their roles and responsibilities in leading this district forward, and then working with Director of Academic Services and the principals to improve student achievement. My goal here was to also make sure that some of the activities that you had identified were mirrored in my action plan. And the assessment plan has been laid out. And you can see that it talks about making sure that the plan is presented and planning initiated, the completion of the feasibility study, regular council meetings held, issues identified and addressed, goal setting and evaluation process of our administrative staff implemented. And then student achievement improvement targets will be identified and attained.
I like these because they're all fairly highly measurable, and I think that that's important. I also think that the entry plan that you've been putting together and are going to present to us is obviously critical in North Reading moving forward, and also the things that you're going to work with us and the administrative team to implement. So I think that this hits right on the money in terms of what the main goal is here.
And you got it all on a page.
Right. Isn't that nice?
The second goal, superintendent will work with the school committee to plan, develop, implement, and monitor the school budget designed to support the district's educational goals. The rationale speaks about the FY11 budget being completed prior to my arrival, so it's important that I work closely with the Director of Finance and Operations to carefully monitor and implement that budget as you had voted. Then I talked a little bit about the FY12 budget development process, particularly facing the current economic state of this country and the challenges that we're all going to face as we begin to develop that budget. So I talked a little bit about, over the years, programs and personnel being reduced and eliminated, and developing that budget vision, taking a look at what's been eliminated, working with you to identify what our priorities are, and then developing a 3 to 5 year vision of a restoration and enrichment program to pull those positions back into the district, or to include positions that may not have been in the district previously, but as we continue to evolve as an educational institution, there are going to be support positions that we want to bring into the district. So that's part of the rationale there. And then I talked about continuing to work with you, with the town-wide finance planning team and the administrative council to develop a modified level services budget for the 2011-12 school year. So you can see what the action plan is. It's to continue to monitor the expenditure of the FY11 budget, work with the finance planning team to identify available revenue for FY12, work with administrative council to identify funding priorities, work with director of finance to identify cost-saving measures, support development of an education foundation for this district, and to review eliminated programs and positions due to historical budget cuts and create a multi-year restoration and expansion budget vision. And so the assessments are listed below. The FY11 budget is monitored and expended. The FY12 budget is developed and approved. The finance planning team meetings are attended and recommendations are reviewed for consideration. Cost-saving measures are identified and implemented. We have an education foundation established, and that multi-year restoration expansion budget vision is developed.
Can I ask you one question? It's my understanding that the Education Foundation has some momentum and we're moving along there. Is that?
That's my understanding, but
Okay.
it's my goal to be more directly involved. I'm not involved at all at this particular
Okay.
moment, and that's why I've included it there, because I think it's going to be very important as we move this district forward, both with our vision as well as supplementing the budget.
Because I know you can't be and we can't be members of it, but
Right.
it's my understanding that David Troughton is staying involved, and he's been meeting with a couple of, I think Mrs. Vaca, Martin Vaca is still involved, and at least one other resident of North Reading, and that the wheels are moving on that, which is good, because it was stalled for quite a while, and I think once you get something like that established, you can start raising some substantial funds that can help supplement many of our
We're
programs.
going to see a lot of changes in that area in the beginning of
Right.
the year, so that this
Yes.
is moving forward considerably.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'm
I can-
happy about that.
I
Yeah.
can tell you, in the other district where I worked, I sat on the Ed Foundation as an ex officio member. So I was not a voting member,
Right.
but I was the liaison between the foundation and the school district. So I'd be looking to be invited to do that as
Right.
well
Good.
with North Reading's Education Foundation.
Good.
And my last goal, goal 3, the superintendent will develop, implement, and maintain effective communication with the school committee, faculty, parents, students, and the community. Talked about the rationale where students are perceived to be achieving at very high levels due to the efforts of parents, school personnel, and the community. And so those that are directly involved with the school seem to have a strong understanding, but I think as a superintendent, I need to do more to ensure that the community at large has that same kind of an understanding. So I've identified a need to expand communication beyond the boundaries of the schoolhouse to include all stakeholders. And by doing so, I think the community will have an increased access to important information and an opportunity to engage in ongoing conversations where new ideas are generated, they're assimilated, they're adapted and used. So the action plan again involves the entry plan and presenting findings. That's as a communication tool to the school committee and to the community at large. I intend to be creating a quarterly superintendent's newsletter, the first one due very soon, distributed in a variety of ways to the community. Begun to explore and expand informational cable TV programming. Meet quarterly with the chairs and vice chairs of all parent associations as a parent advisory council to the superintendent. Of course, attend school-sponsored events and community-sponsored events within the town, and expand the use of the district website as a communication tool. And you can see the assessment plan is that, again, the entry plan is presented, the newsletters are completed, cable TV programming is expanded, the advisory council meetings are held, and school and community events are attended, and the district-wide website is used to communicate with the public.
You just had, didn't you just have your first, or was it, you just mentioned to me the Parent Advisory Council, you had a huge turnout, correct?
Yes, we had a very large turnout. We were bursting at the seams in the little conference room adjacent to my office, but we had 17 members attend, almost a complete showing of all
Great.
those that had been invited. And we had a really good conversation. We were talking about, again, I was using it as an opportunity to gather more information regarding the entry plan, what's working, what's their perception of what's working in our school district, and what are some of those areas where they think that there's a need for improvement. We talked about potential hot topics for the future, and moving forward, continuing to keep me abreast of what's being discussed out in the community.
So as with our goals, this is a different format than we used to use, and I like it. I was just, before I read it, I wrote down notes of what are the things that I, want to see the superintendent involved in. Student achievement, you hit that. Faculty and administration relationships, relationship with the community and with parents, district progress. How's the district progressing? I think we hit that in here. The one thing I didn't see in here is some level of working with other superintendents, whether that be a regional committee, and I think that kind of communication is important.
Mm-hmm.
You may already do that.
Mm-hmm.
I know that Dr. Troughton was involved with a group of superintendents. I don't know if they still meet. Do you remember David used to meet with that?
Yeah, he did, and it was from the general area, obviously. I
Right,
think.
Wilmington. And
Andover.
I don't know if that group still meets on a regular basis, but I just think that kind of input, both for you to get and for you to give in terms of things we're doing here, could be beneficial to us. That's really the only thing I see. You do mention the strategic plan as part of your entry plan, and our strategic plan needs either a major revision or to be rewritten. I think that's what you're getting at there.
Right.
That's part of that. So,
Exactly.
so you hit all of my, most of my hot buttons, except for that one with, kind of more interaction with your peers, which I'm sure you'll be doing anyway. So.
I am engaged in that, but I could add a goal around professional development so
I
that
think-
you become more aware of what I am
Yeah,
involved in.
I don't know if the other rest of, I'd like to see just something like that, to see what you are doing
Mhm.
in that area. I think that's important. Any other comments or questions? Michael?
I had one question about the district website as a communication tool.
Mhm.
I noticed that a lot of teachers are using disparate websites to communicate it
Yeah.
to their students.
Mhm.
Some are even paying for their own websites.
Mhm.
And I was just wondering, and I've discussed this in the subcommittee, the technology subcommittee, but I think it should come from the top down, that there is a standard template and the standard website that all teachers use that the students can access? Because right now, it's a little confusing, especially at the middle school level,
Mm-hmm.
where there's several websites, several types of information that are being posted for each teacher. So I'd like to see kind of the top-down message coming down that we're going to be using a single template, whether it's SharePoint, whatever technology we have in-house, that gets distributed, and that could be part of that whole district website communication tool.
I agree,
So-
Mike. I think, because I think part of that comes from before we had
Right.
a
Right.
system.
Yeah.
Some